About 4 years ago, I went through incident of sexual assault, which led me with PTSD as well as clinical depression, and and I was quite sick. I knew I was sick. It's a bit like when you have a sore throat and the niggle starts to happen and you know it, and then the fever comes and then your sinuses are blocked, but you'll still go to office because you just think you'll get better on your own, and you keep pushing yourself and you think, okay, no, I'll just I'll get through this, and it gets that's when it starts to spread to your lungs and you start to feel really sick, and then you do have to go to a doctor and take medicine. Unfortunately for me, because all of this was happening in my head and it was manifesting as a lot of crying and a lot of insomnia behind doors, but I'm also a very high functioning individual. So at during the same period, these 2 or 3 years before I actually got help, I won 3 awards for this podcast. I got promoted. I got an excellent increment. I started writing for Reader's Digest, which is a part of the India Today group as well. And I started contributing more to the web stories. I set up a new home. I adopted a new puppy. I got turtles. I got 5 guinea pigs. I started crocheting. I started doing pottery. So it was so difficult to actually look at someone and say, I am not well,
Correct.
because I was a high functioning
Functioning
depressant.
emotion. Yeah.
And a lot of people, at that time, of course, I was interviewing psychiatrists and talking about mental health, and I was writing what I should be doing actually. And they kept saying, you need, I was doing cognitive behavior therapy, which was to, reduce the crying. But at that time, I had no capacity left for that cognitive therapy to work because my cognition had
Awkward.
only like sort of split apart.
Correct.
And I know logically I was to go and take medicine, which would have helped build that capacity. But I just kept saying, I can't take medicine. It will numb my feelings, or I can't take medicine because one of the reasons the assault happened was right before I got married. So I don't want to get married thinking that that was the reason I have to now take depressive antidepressants or other psychiatric drugs. And then I read up online, and there was so much of I mean, it's not fear mongering. It has
Yes.
happened. There has been cases of dependency. There have been cases of severe symptoms and withdrawal, and there have been really scary cases of male psychiatrists, just overdosing you and
Correct.
taking
Correct.
you're making fun of you. So we've had
Yeah.
not so pretty picture about the whole, psychiatric treatment in India and medicine until exactly a year ago when a doctor I was interviewing, and of course the name stays confidential, although I wanted to do the podcast with him, but then he said absolutely no. So, because of the confidentiality, I can only share that I just finished an interview with him. They'd launched a new brand of mental health hospitals, and I called up, and just 5 minutes after I finished, I said, "I am sick. I am very sick. Just do something. Help me. I know I'm sick." And I guess in terms of the flu, one would say this is the point you need ventilator support. And I went into his office, and it changed my life. It was nothing like what I thought it was. Um, there are doctors today who will start you off with a very small dose. They will gradually build you up. They will walk you through the process. I had no side effects. I am on an antidepressant for over a year now. Very proud to admit it. I have to take a low dose of anti-panic drug, which also helps me sleep better. But all of this together has actually made CBT work for me and therapy work for me, and I feel better. I am happier, and I don't feel um, any sort of urge to cram all the medicines into me to feel better, which was one of my fears. Because alongside the medicine, the capacity I gained, I pushed all my strength into it to become better as well. It's not like the medicine was there to make me get better. And I wanted to share this because if someone like me, who is a health journalist, who talks to doctors all the time, took 2.5 years to get to medicine, then I can
Yes.
only imagine what people outside of this fraternity
Outside.
might be thinking.
But
So I
yeah.
have with me today someone whose name I'm delighted to pronounce, Dr. Priti Duggar Gupta. She is a consultant psychiatrist with a hospital in Bangalore called Astor Whitefield Hospital. And she has come to talk about not just the medication part of it, but also who qualifies for medication. So, hello, Dr. Preeti.
Hello,
Pretty.
Miss Sonali. It's pretty. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for having me. And yes, I whatever the things that you have told, I'm glad that you reached out, and I'm glad you are in the remission. And I do understand that with medication comes the stigma comes first, and just reaching at our doorstep may take a decade or so. And that's yeah, I know that we are talking about it, and uh how to begin with. First, the first thing means what I heard is the sadness thing. Oh, I'm sad, so it means I'm depressed, whereas it's not the same thing. So sadness is an emotion, right? Depression is a disorder altogether. So what happened, we have different type of emotions. We have anger, and then happiness, and cheerful, and these are the different emotions. Sadness is just the part of it. Now, a persistent sadness is something which is concerning. For example, just because your boss yelled at you, or you did not get a good appraisal, or the exam didn't go well, and you're sad, doesn't mean you're depressed. These days, I have heard a lot of individuals, casually they use the term, oh my God, I'm depressed. But it's much more severe than that. Using it just as an adjective or to explain the present state is not a good thing. For example, having a bad weather for an evening is sadness. But having a bad weather which will never go away and you don't know when it will go away, that's what depression is.
For me, it also manifested as like memory lapses. It's so weird. Like, small things. And
Yeah.
suppose I'm talking to you right now, right? And you're saying things to
Correct.
me, I'm nodding along. It came to a stage where I was listening, but there is a second part of listening where you're processing,
Processing.
which
Correct.
was not
Correct.
happening at
Happen
all.
at
And
all.
that's when I started realizing, the niggle in the throat is
Correct.
spreading.
Correct.
Um, can we talk a little bit more about the effect on your brain of
Bring.
depression,
Yeah.
actually? Because
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
really starts from, doesn't it?
Starts from. Yes, it does. So, first, I'll just quickly explain the neurobiology so that the people, a lot of time patients come to me thinking, oh, depression is just a psychological thing, it has nothing to do with your brain chemistry as such. But so how do our cells function is they send the signals from one cell then to the next, and it's carried by the chemicals you know so even for a smile that I have on my face, like we are talking right now, and we are feeling that there's a smile and we are very engaging, that slight emotion of a happiness or a joy is also because of that chemical. You fall in love with somebody and all of a sudden the life feels beautiful. Where is it coming from? It's the same body, correct? The world is the same, the chemicals. So what happens in depression is there is a dysregulation in all those chemicals. They are not produced enough. Sometimes they are not received in a proper, the messages is not conveyed. Then there are pathways issue. So there are networks between the cells. Sometimes something goes wrong with the pathway. Sometimes there is this HP axis, the hypothalamus and your adrenal axis, that it manages our routine stresses. Sometimes the axis goes wrong. Sometimes it's just that one of your brain area is not working. It's hypershooting. There's a lot of stress and all. So it's not just related to the psychological thing. Just merely telling somebody, "Oh, think positive will work." No, it's very much to the brain chemistry. Now coming on to the symptoms, if I say. Uh, just sadness does not mean depression, like we told. Persistent sadness, yes, persistent sadness over weeks. As per the WHO, the criteria should be minimum 15 days. Persistent sadness, 24/7, affecting all the domains of your life. Next is you lose interest in the things which you earlier used to like. So going out with friends, no more you like it. Then comes having a generalized fatigue. You're tired all the time. Even of the slight chores that you do, now you feel tired all the time. Then comes the sleep issues. Either you sleep a lot or you have a difficult falling asleep. Then comes the appetite issue. Either you are eating like anything, it's your binge eating and you don't know why you're doing this, but you're doing that. Or you lose your appetite. Then comes the concentration issues. Like you told, in the middle of discussion, patients do report that they zone out. Even if I'm saying something, it doesn't get registered. This is one of the symptom of depression, the reduced concentration and attention. Then comes the self-esteem. For the task that you earlier used to head on, you will do things. Now you feel, no, maybe I cannot do. Maybe I'm not,
Yeah.
you lose that
Mm.
self-esteem. Gradually, you develop a negative, bleak views about the future. It's very pessimistic. You don't see tomorrow at all. Then comes the life starts feeling like hopeless, you know, and then it feels helpless. Means nothing can help me, and maybe the life is worthless and I'm a burden on other people. So this comes over the weeks. And then comes the death wishes. Because the pain is so unbearable, and added on with it's not a physical thing. If you have a skin issue, it's very evident to everybody. So they can tell you, oh, maybe you should take rest. Or if you have a fractured leg, they will say, oh, you have a fractured leg, please take rest. But the thing with the brain is everything is seen in your behavior. And we have a thing of pushing on to telling, oh, you go for a vacation, you'll do good. And, you go for a shopping or you party hard and all those things will fix it. Without understanding the problem is in the neurobiology. The chemical itself is not being produced enough.
Yeah. In fact, you know, at the peak of my illness, I remember I I felt scared to even ask an AC electrician to come and service the air conditioners because I felt like I
Right.
just couldn't do it.
Couldn't.
Um, but the skills I already knew because I am generally my personality type is so high functioning. The skills
Yeah.
I already knew I could perfect really well, but I couldn't pick up something else. And a case in this is about since I've been on treatment about a month ago, I had gone to a a small homestay in Nilkant, which is in Uttarakhand. And it was raining. There was a cloudburst. For 4 days, I was stranded there. There was no electricity. And my phone wasn't working. And I'd gone with two dogs. And the day we were to leave, as I came to my car, one of my dogs ran away. So I went, got her. Then my car battery died just then. And the car wasn't working and they tried to push it, but we did something and the engine got locked. And then we had to call a tow truck to come and get the car down and a cab to get me down with the dogs. Before the tow truck came, somebody came and managed to fix it. And then I drove down with the two dogs through all this rubble of 10 or 11 places where the road had broken, so there were mountains of
Problems.
rubble and
Correct.
cranes sort of making space, and there was waterlogging. And then I reached Rishikesh, which was the closest spot on the plane, spent a night, drove back home to Delhi. The next day I went to work, and I did it, and this is who I always was. So
Was.
but
Yes.
in the middle of your illness, I swear to you, you don't even think that you're not
Think.
feeling capable. It's just
Correct.
the that processing which
Mm.
needs to tell you
Yeah.
that, hey, this is not you.
This is not. Yeah.
That doesn't happen only.
Happen.
So
Yes.
how do you even know that it's time to get to treatment? Every time I
Yeah.
tell, like, I finally told my mother everything, and she says, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you tell me?"
You don't look like. Yeah. Yeah.
No, she didn't say you don't look like it. She said, "Why
Ah.
didn't you tell me?" And I said,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. It never even struck me that I should tell you. Like that thought never appeared. Like my
Yeah.
thoughts were only so just get through another day. That's it.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
get through another day and another
Correct.
day and something. And the crying was, I realized, a symptom of asking someone else to do the work for me. That please take me to a doctor.
Yeah.
So how do we help ourselves? And if we can't, then how do we recognize that it's time to help someone else?
As in the warning signals, if you may say.
Yes, like how do we know at what point um it's time to ask for help to go to a doctor to a
Okay.
psychiatrist,
Okay.
or if we're too sick to even ask for it. Suppose I, as a healthy individual, see someone
Okay.
else going through these sort of fits. How do I know
Okay.
that this person requires that kind of help? Because I was asking. It's not like I
Correct.
wasn't, but it was just coming out in a different way. It was just coming out with a lot of pain
So
coming out. I thought people would know.
one thing is, the first thing that is usually noticed is definitely a behavioral change. Even if it's
Mm.
high functioning, the person themselves, they can sense it that something's not right. You may not have the idea that what is it, but you will definitely have a sense that this is not me. I'm doing things like you said. Let's do it for a day, and you don't think about tomorrow. You will start having a sense of something's going wrong. Or as long as you're working, you feel it's all good. The moment you enter your room, or the moment you enter home, and then something happens. you know when I say you lose interest in things, it's very evident. You start saying no to the same friends. They ask you, oh, let's go for a movie, and you're like, no, I don't want to, even if it's your favorite movie. Appetite may not be immediately, but yeah, the agitation is also another thing. Irritability. So you start getting, finicky about little things. So the subtle changes in yourselves, if you start feeling, if even if you start feeling it's not me, and if it happens over the days, if it's for a day or so, not an issue, but it's crossing weeks, then yes. Second is, if you see somebody, when you see somebody, you will notice if it's a workplace, it's usually the fidgetiness. You want to get your things, you're like, initially, if so and so person, okay, and they're doing very well, and all of a sudden you feel, okay, he's very irritable, gets very anxious very easily, and it has how do I say, anger issues has come, missing the deadlines. They
Mm.
often complain about, I'm not sleeping enough, let alone all these things. You will see some things with the productivity. Some things, they're not doing on time, or whatever the things they earlier used to do within an hour or so, now it's taking a day and still they can't do it. Then sometimes a silly mistakes, or you feel while you talk to them they are zoned out. you know so these are a subtle
These are
thing
the
until it
symptoms.
becomes evident. So these are the subtle things that we can see, and
Correct.
maybe reaching out to them and telling, okay, is everything okay? Just asking a little thing, sometimes it does a very good job, because um, in India, s- confessing that I have an issue is a sign of strength instead. You know, in the society that we live in, if we suppress it, Indian society perceives it as a strength, but it is other way around. It takes a lot of courage to confess to somebody that, yes, I'm not doing good. I don't feel okay. And like I say to my all of my patients, it's okay to be not okay.
But you know what? Even I was very fine admitting I'm not okay. But at that point, everyone who did know did suggest that maybe you need to go to a psychiatrist, and I would blow up.
Yes.
Just the thought of it was like, oh
Yes.
no, 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 I will do, I'm very happy
Anything.
to try this app and this
Correct.
meditation, and
Yeah.
you give
I'll
me
do
all the gut
yoga. I'll go
friendly
to
hormones you
gym.
want
Yeah.
or
Correct.
whatever.
Very,
I
very
don't want
good.
to go to a psychiatrist. No, no,
I know.
that can't
I
be
know.
me. Not
Yeah.
only do you have thoughts of mental asylums popping up, but then you
Correct.
have all
Correct.
these, withdrawal symptoms, and you're screaming and
Yes.
shouting, give me
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
medicine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, you've been taken off it and whatnot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was my biggest fear. So let's address that. Let's start with, why do you even need medicine in the
In
first
first.
place?
So first is, not all disorders require medication. I do. This is again coming to, it's from the stigma that we have. We have a very different picture of psychiatry medications and psychiatry illness, thanks to the cinema that we see. It superimposes onto, be a Salman Khan's movie, you see that Tere Naam and all those. It's not like that. And I get furious all the time because we know what, how normal it is, and it's not like how they show it. And yes, just because you're going to a psychiatrist doesn't mean that you will be prescribed medications. So all the patients coming to me for the first visit, I ask them, have you come with have someone told this to you, that since you're going to them and you're stuck with them for the rest of the life? So first, yes, we go through their symptoms, we diagnose them, and for every disorder there is a there are how do I tell severity of symptoms. So if the symptoms are mild, okay, you're still functioning well, functioning as in the domains are not affected. When I say domains, it's your personal, occupational, familial. If it's on the milder gradient, so when we do the assessment, we take them for therapies. So the therapy, lifestyle modification, that helps. The moment the symptoms fall into the moderate to severe category, that's when the brain is no more receptive to somebody telling you and asking you to complete those worksheets. Now the same chemical balance is going, even worse. That's when it comes as a paired thing. So medications, yes, we give them medications. Now, why the medications? Because no amount of motivational talks, no amount of yoga, nothing is going to stimulate your brain to produce those chemicals.
Yeah. Not even breath work.
Not even.
I had 6 apps at one point. Each one gave me
I
a
get it.
different thing, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it didn't work.
So what I tell them, yeah, it's like, for example, it's not true. Well, it's an example as such. For example, your body needs 100 milligram of once for the day to function through and through. If it drops to 90, maybe watching motivational TED Talk and all those, or yoga, or this the breathing and everything. You do it, and from 90 it goes to 100, and you're fine. The moment it starts dropping to 50, now, even if you do your yoga and your breath work, it will go to 60. It will not go to 100. So the moment your symptoms start getting worsening over the period, that's when we need a medicine to stimulate. Now, is it a chemical crutch? Are you this thing, you're giving medicines,
Dependency.
you're giving it, yeah,
Mm.
correct. You're giving it from outside and all those things. We are just restoring the neurochemical imbalance. We are not giving you, it's not alcohol that you're giving for a high. It's not substance that you're giving for a high. We're just restoring the pathways and the chemicals. And yes, if not, if you keep on ignoring your symptoms, and one fine day you will have a very bad meltdown, and then they come to us, and sometimes it's so bad they come with a suicidal attempt. And last on September 10th, we had a suicide awareness, and I was just going, I had a seminar, and uh, coming to the stats, it was, every 30 seconds in the entire world, somebody loses their life to suicide. In India, every 3 minutes, one person loses their life to suicide. So I just start by, I just told my, the the audience, I told you just calculate the minutes I have taken to complete this seminar. Some are saved, and they're brought to emergency, and yes, we work and they get back to their life, but some do not make it to, just because reaching out for help is, it's still stigmatized, and medication especially, you know but it's only for some time. There are different disorders in mental illness which require a very long treatment.
Right.
But
So I wanted to ask you a couple of other, doubts that I had, which I know the answers to now, but just for the benefit of those listening. Number one, do any of these medications numb your emotions? Like I was very scared that I won't be able to feel anything, which was really
yeah,
scary for me versus feeling everything. Is
correct.
that what medications do?
No, medications don't numb it. The thing is, first is you start feeling low. So whenever there is a surge in the chemical issue, so you start getting better. It's not the numbness,
Mm.
you know.
And does that, like, the other fact was I was very worried if I'm ever taken off it, I wouldn't be able to feel at all. I'll just go
Oh,
crashing down.
yeah.
It is when you take the crutch away the first time.
Correct.
But from what I mean, please, I'll let you explain how you
No, no,
take the
tell me.
crutch away.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
from what I've sort of made myself feel better is just because I know this from my doctor that he was very careful in the way in which the medication was done. In fact, I started with 0.25 mg of serotonin, which in the
Okay.
US
Yeah,
doesn't even, exist as a tablet. I think they start with
correct,
only
correct,
0.5. So I was given
correct,
such a low dose. And
correct,
then almost every 3, 4 months, once my body
correct.
got used to one, did it increase. And I'm
Yes,
assuming that's a similar way in which the decline will happen whenever it does that
correct.
you bring it down in a way
Down
that very little,
gradually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes. So first is the medications are not every medic. So back in 70s, 80s, we only had few 5 or 6 tablets to say. And back in those days, we did not have much of research work done. So the medications were given and they would feel drowsy. And, that's how it is passed on to generations. And we have this thing that there are every medication means you are going to sleep through and through. Every medication that you take, your brain will go numb or you will have a weight gain and all those things. Now, this is 2025. We have a lot of medications. We have medications even safer when you are pregnant, even safer to be taken during lactation. Also, there are medications which don't make you drowsy at all. So you can take one medication and you go to your work and you do and you're not feeling drowsy at all.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, it's for every molecule that we give, there is a therapeutic range. Therapeutic range means at what dosage it works optimum. So for every molecule, it's different. We don't give the higher doses molecule right away because to begin with, first, when the medication is introduced, your body needs to stabilize to the neurochemicals and it takes time. I do understand, but the first time we write prescription, I tell them, please wait for 5, 6 days. I tell them, okay, these may be the few things you may and may not experience. I'm telling you in first hand because the moment you have it, the first thought, oh my God, this is causing a side effect. It's not so. It's temporary, the side effects. Nausea and headaches, it's temporary, it's dose related, and it gradually weans off after a week period, at max 10 days. Anything that persists beyond that can be done. We can go through and review our medication. That's about. Second is regarding, so this is done over the months. So we start with low dose, we give body the time, and then we reassess. And not all the patients require very heavy dosages. Some settle on a very low dosages. Every brain is different, correct? So accordingly. Second is regarding the tapering. So the most common thing I've seen is my patients, oh, I felt better, I stopped it. We have this thing, oh, I'm doing fine, let's just stop it. They don't understand that medicine was the thing that was stimulating the brain and restoring the chemical
Well,
imbalance was there. So the tapering has to be under the supervision of a doctor. And yes, indeed, medicines are tapered and stop as well. I do understand it's over the month, so it feels like you're taking medication for an eternity. So, how, example as to say, if you're driving a car at a very high speed, it's like 100 km per hour, and you want to slow it down, you never pull your handbrake. You slow it down to 80. And, you lower down the gear and then
yeah,
it's 60,
yeah.
50, and you gradually, Same is with the psychiatric medication. They need a very soft landing.
Mm.
It's not like, okay, tomorrow onwards I'll not take it. No, there's
Yeah,
a way
yeah.
to do it. So it's
And
tapered. We observe for a few weeks and then we taper and then stop. Stopping them abruptly is definitely going to give you, a rebound problems. Yeah.
yeah. And you know, we've been talking a lot about the brain, right? And it just struck me when I mentioned serotonin, in fact, that there is another brain which we really don't think about, which is well, in my intestines.
Okay.
Because I do know that serotonin is largely produced by your gut bacteria. Um,
Okay.
There's a fair amount that
Correct.
apparently comes
Correct.
from there. And I needed more of this medicine to feel good and to build
Yes.
capacity and so on. So, can someone go into depression
Yeah.
just purely through a bad lifestyle? Like for me, there was a trigger. But can somebody just have it just through, like,
Okay.
I have messed up my gut health, for example? Can I get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lifestyle, yes, indeed, a very big factor. When I say lifestyle, it includes a few things. One, the diet, the things that we consume. Second, the food and the beverages, both the fluid, whatever intake is there. Second is going to be the physical activity. Third is going to the sleep. Coming first to the diet is what happens is it's very rich in carbs. There's a lot of processed food. It's rich in fats and all those things, high in sugar. So what happened? It messes with your gut bacteria. So this is what it is called gut brain axis. So it affects vice versa also. For example,
Mhm.
so if you're very stressed
Uh,
on days back in our school days, on the days when we have our result coming, something happens in the stomach. There's some butterflies you are feeling, So if this constant stimulation is there, it interferes with your gut bacteria. It can cause a lot of belching, bloating, then indigestion, constipation, diarrhea. You get your ultrasound done, everything is fine. The gastroenterologist say, no, nothing's wrong with you, but still it doesn't go away. And it's also vice versa. The moment your stomach is upset, correct, your mood is low.
mm, yeah.
So yes, one is the gut health is important.
Mhm.
And second, coming to the quality of sleep that we have.
Mm.
So what happens is we need 6 to 8 hours of night sleep. I mentioned specifically night. Why? Because I see a lot of IT professionals and they have different work shifts, and they come to me and say, I slept 4 hours at night and I sleep 4 hours in the morning, so it sums up to 8. Like, this is not how it is. Your brain, we are not nocturnal animals, so we need the sleep
Really, they're
according to
IT
the
professionals. They should be able to do the math.
what
4
they
and
do is
4
they say.
separated is not 8.
Correct, correct. So I have to tell them, I have to make all the entire charts and I will explain them. And I told, since we are not nocturnal animals, our circadian rhythm is not evolutionary, it's not being like that. So we need that 6 to 8 hours of through and through night sleep. Specifically, the window period is between 8 and 11. Now, why this window period? We have this chemical called melatonin. So the moment there is a sunset and it's getting dark and your eyes pick up the signals, oh my God, it's getting dark. It signals your brain, it's time to rest. So what happens? It secretes melatonin and gradually it builds over the period. It reaches its peak around 10, 11. After that, it drops gradually. Meanwhile, around 3 or 4 o'clock, 3 and 4 o'clock, the cortisol kicks in. That's a wake hormone. It's a stress hormone. Its job is to wake us up in the morning. So there's an entire mess up. So if you're sleeping on a window period after 11, late nights, you're binge watching. So there's a lot of screen time. There's a lot of frontal activity going on. The brain is very active. So sleep is one thing. Third is going to be the physical activity. The movement is important. As simple as going for a 15 minutes walk without your cell phone outside, that also helps.
My last question to you is actually about the partner to medication, which is your counseling and your behavior therapy and so on. A lot of people, and in fact, I was also very surprised that I also thought that therapy is largely about venting, you empty it all out.
Just
And
talking.
yeah, just it's talking. You empty it all out, you'll feel better. But no, actually, now I've been doing over a year and a half with medication on the side, and it's not the medication that's helping me get better. It's actually being very honest, like it's the worst thing in the world to shine the mirror upon yourself. If I have a little statue which I got when I realized this, which has a little clay head with a mirror pointing called self
Yeah.
reflection. And
Yeah.
that's when you really realize what in your behavior is allowing for this kind of stress to even happen in the first place, apart from lifestyle behavior. But I had a lot of environmental factors that were affecting me,
Correct. Correct.
not being able to say no is one huge thing. But then I had to, like, you feel like a fool when you go to somebody and I mean, somebody you don't know, but like somebody you meet every week, and then say, oh, I allowed this person to just, do this to me, or, take 3 lakhs from me, but then he wouldn't even, help me when I was sick, or you feel
Yeah.
so stupid saying it.
Correct.
But I know, like, somewhere over time, I realize it's not venting. It's so
Yes.
much of growing, actually, which, the depression is probably, I mean, it was a result of certain behavior sets that
Correct.
led me there. But, you to get out of it, you definitely have to um, change yourself or grow beyond what you are. So, can we discuss a little bit about the importance of therapy and
Therapy.
continuing with it?
Yeah.
Because somewhere, like, I also feel, because I know people who are in depression who think that the medicine will do the job. I'm
I
going to
know.
feel better. I
Yeah.
will become better. But you can
Yes.
always relapse if you
Correct.
are
Correct.
moving on
Not taking care
exactly
of
the
you.
same as what you
Same
are.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll. So what happens is our brain is in a constant, it's constantly thinking and analyzing the situations. It is analyzing our responses to those situations. Now, sometimes those responses or the coping that we have, something happens there. Just because your brain handled stress in a certain way doesn't mean that coping. How do I say? Uh, so some patients say, "Oh, I have a stress. I sleep and I'm fine. I'm fine." You know, "Oh, I buy something, or it's a retail therapy for me." These kind of words. So what happens is over the period, you are building a certain type of coping strategies, a certain type of defense mechanism to handle the routine life stresses. And we all have that. And what happens is when these coping mechanisms, they are maladaptive, as in there are different cognitive distortions. I'm using technical terms. So cognition means the thought process. Distortions means any faulty thinking, if I put it in simpler terms. uh, like we have this thing called mental filtering. Why did it come into play? So back in the evolutionary times when we were in the jungles and everything, so what happened is there's a lot of survival thing. Okay, you might get attacked and everything. So it would pick up on the all the negative information. Oh, it's bushy here, it's dark here. So we always had an affinity for a negative information, just so that we could survive those periods. Now with evolution we have moved to a civilized society, but that survival instinct, that has not gone. So we always have a negative bias, to every information, it's given. In the earlier days it was for a protective and a survival thing, but now what happens is there are 10 people in your office and you're looking good, you're looking good, yeah. But the moment anybody says, "No, you look a little fat today," or maybe you look a little dull, your brain will not remember those 10 compliments. Your brain will remember that one remark made by a colleague, and then your brain will keep on thinking, "Oh, do I look fat?" It gradually starts. And then since you're thinking, now this is a cognitive distortion. You have filtered it. You have ignored the positives and you highlighted the negatives. And if you keep on thinking, within a week, you yourself will start believing that, yes, I do look fat. So these are the cognitive distortion. Another is minimization. So if something good happens, you minimize it to, no, no, it's nothing, nothing much. You don't celebrate it for yourself. Another is maximization, means something little has happened and then you exaggerate. It's disproportionate, out of proportion, and you keep on thinking. These are cognitive distortions. And we have this over the decades and the experiences and how we grow, all those things, how our personality develops into. In depression, what happens is this entire thing, the cognitive distortions become even more, and there's no balancing anymore, that's when the now medication can't fix this cognitive distortion. So this is where the therapy comes in. Now there are different type of therapies. Some is CBT, then there is interpersonal therapy, then there is DBT, there's schema therapy, there's ERT, there's EMDR, there's a lot of therapies, and these are evidence-based therapies. When I was also I was a resident in psychiatry, all I thought about therapists was they just, they pay you a lot and you just sit there and you just talk. And I was a resident, studying psychiatry, and I had a very different notion about it. But trust me, it's evidence based. It's very structured. They analyze your thoughts. Okay, they analyze what defense mechanisms you're using. Those may be immature defense mechanisms. Those may be mature and neurotic. They're different. There could be faulty coping mechanisms as well. So therapists, what they do is they restructure those cognitive distortions. And just going for a therapy for few weeks may not fix it, because you have developed a personality over many years. One fine day a therapist or a psychiatrist like me and comes up to say, no, something's wrong with your thinking, you will not be receptive to it. It comes with, it's a skill you learn over the period. So maybe if you are in depression, they help you analyze those patterns. So that is why the therapy becomes important. And once you recover from the illness, then you can work upon yourself as well. So in future, you can take care of things better.
You know what I really love about this current stage of mental health support and treatment in India is that I find psychiatrists and psychologists supporting one another
Yeah,
a
finally.
lot more. Yes. And
Finally,
it's
it's
lovely,
happened.
In fact, so many of people I've been, in touch with through my support groups who have gone to psychologists and they have realized that this person does need medication, and a medication
Correct.
can only be given by a doctor, which is a
Psychiatrist, yeah.
psychiatrist.
Correct.
And they do recommend, and vice versa. My
Yes,
psychiatrist sent me to a psychologist. So it's
correct.
it's good to see, two very crucial forms of treatment coming
Yeah,
together.
coming
And
together finally.
yes, and I'm very happy that you said what you did today, and thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm just going to wind this up with a quick note to those listening that I think on my worst days, I used to say that, you know, I have a lot of faith in God and spirituality, and that kept me grounded. So I used to say, no, God loves me,
Yes.
just need to get through this. And now looking back, one of the things that I find so incredible is that I was always getting help. I just the stress or the unhappiness was just so much inside that at that point it didn't
Yes.
look like help. So I just want to quickly say that my first therapist was actually this podcast. I
Oh,
started it, and in fact, if you go back to the first few videos, you'll find me with very short hair because I couldn't maintain hair at that point, unwashed and like looking like this
I get it.
wild thing, no makeup,
Yes.
nothing.
Yeah,
And
correct.
you can see a transformation in just the videos. And this podcast started with the first few episodes were on mental health and on neurodiversity, and it became a place to start talking. And I'm very grateful for the entire production team who's been listening to me do this for so long, and to those who've been listening to this podcast for so long as well. Yeah, and I had a therapist who would give me credit to do therapy. She did it on a credit line because I didn't have the money, and therapy is expensive.
Yes,
Something to
expensive.
discuss in the future.
Yeah.
And then I had a psychiatrist at Ames, whose name I will not reveal, but I had interviewed her professor for a book I'd written on social media addiction. And she remembered me from then. And because her professor had liked me and he'd passed away, and in memory of him, she gave me out of OPD treatment. She couldn't prescribe medication, but she did listen to me, and she was a specialist in trauma therapy, which I needed. And then I found a psychiatrist through this job, actually. And yeah, and I'm very, very grateful because help comes. It's just really important to
Yes.
just
Yeah.
just get through the day,
Get
It's
right back.
takes a while. It's expensive. There's a lot of stuff to get through, especially the social baggage um and your own personal baggage. In fact, I'm really amazed at how well my mother has taken it, which in my head I never thought would exist. So a lot of um the fears can also be self-made at times.
Self-made. Yeah.
Just believe that you deserve it. So, give it a shot. It go
Yeah.
to your parents. You'll be very amazed by, how willing they are to see you be happy. And
Also,
so,
just to put in a word, uh, even if you feel, reaching out to somebody in the off, and just going out and reaching
yeah,
out, it's difficult. Now that we have helplines, you know, it's very confidential. We have counselors 24/7. In Bangalore, we have NIMHANS. It's, all India, it's toll free helpline. It's 14416. Please reach out, just pick your call. Somebody on the other side, we have been trained, we have counselors, and then they are there for you. you know just call once.
yeah. And we don't have a helpline of that sort, but we do have an email address where our listeners can write in if they want to hear about a certain topic or if they want to give feedback. It's pods@indiatoday.com. And if you have enjoyed this episode and if it's contributed in any way to your well being, then please feel free to like this episode. We are available on all major audio streaming platforms.